Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this first official meeting of this planning board for 2018-2019. We have several issues to address, and the second item after I'm calling the meeting to order is to discuss our last meeting's minutes. Are there any, which you've received electronically, are there any amendments to that? Any additions, deletions? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
One abstain.
Okay, that's fine. One abstention. Our next order of business is to elect a secretary. I have received a nomination to renominate Brian Beaupre as secretary. And Brian, are you willing to accept it?
I am.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who's interested in being secretary? Okay, great. Do we have a motion to nominate Brian Beaupre as secretary of the Warrant Committee?
I'll make a motion to nominate Brian.
We have a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. It's
Congratulations,
passed.
Brian.
Congratulations, Brian.
I don't know.
Hey, we're in this together, right?
Typing.
All right, choo-choo, rah-rah, and all that sort of thing. So, as we all know, you've all received electronically the index of the warrant articles. We know what we have to discuss. I don't think we know exactly what's in every one because we have not received the text for those we're expecting from the zoning board and from the planning board. And Article 10, the act to authorize the appointment of retired police officers as special police officers. I am expecting that we'll see that text very shortly and hopefully before our next meeting. But since we have Articles 11 through 16 that you've received, why don't we just go through them and discuss them as we see them, and if there is a need, if anybody feels a need for further discussion or presentation, we can invite the concerned individuals who propose them in if they aren't already here or come a little bit later, some may. Article 11, as we see before us, is to see if the town will vote to amend Article 14 of the annual town meeting held May 1, 2017 by revising the membership of the Fire Station Building Committee to change the membership from 9 members to 11 members. The 2 additional members would be the fire chief and a member of the town fire department, the Milton Fire Department. I'm imagining that as one of the regular officers. I am not sure what the agenda for this edition is, why one needs a larger committee, and I would imagine adding the chief is almost redundant because I would imagine he's got a lot to say about what's happening anyway. So I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts or any information about this particular amendment. An additional 2 people on the committee. I have no idea why this is being proposed.
Do we have the composition, the current composition of the remaining 9 members?
The membership of the committee? You mean the actual individuals who sit on it?
Not the titles of the individuals.
Oh, I do not have that, no.
No, they're all citizens.
I think
There's no
that's-
town employees
Yeah.
on it, I do not believe. They're all very qualified people, but
The presentation that we had at the town meeting was, I thought, excellent from the building committee.
there's a bunch of architects and
Yes. I imagine that they're interested parties and certainly very competent. Certainly that presentation was insightful from my perspective, but I don't know what the credentials are. I have a concern about having the chief and an active firefighter on the committee because I think to some extent they should be kept neutral. I mean, their input is there, but to have a vote when you're part of the department kind of strikes me as being a conflict, potentially, and I always like to avoid conflicts. So I'm interested in what anybody else has to say about this.
I think the chief would have almost an inherent conflict because he runs the budget
Right.
as well as the capital demands.
Exactly.
But I can see why they would want more input as to what the requirements for the stations are, because there has been a long back and forth about
Yeah.
what
Is needed.
is actually needed, whether it's expansion in the existing buildings to just renovations to do they need all new things. I mean, there's a wide variety of opinions. at least about town, I believe. So I think that's what the concern is that the chief and other interested parties, I imagine, want to make sure that their requirements are actually being addressed rather than simple architectural concerns or things like that. I don't know if he's an ex officio member. I mean, I would think he would be by default, but I don't know.
I would imagine
written down.
he's a resource to the committee. If
Yeah,
nothing
I
else.
think he goes and presents to them. It might be only if they call him.
Yes,
Is that they are a member, but they can't vote.
non-voting member.
They're not a voting member, so I think they want them to be a voting member. And the only way to do that is to put them on the committee. If I understand it correctly.
If they had stronger voting, I mean, 2 out of 11 votes isn't so concerning for me. Commonly on boards of directors, you have interested folks. You have the
Agreed.
CEO.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's why the composition, if it truly is 9 neutrals right now, unless there's some sort of issue with them being overly persuasive or have some other leverage, that part wouldn't concern me. But then also, the reasoning behind it would be helpful.
Absolutely. Yes, I
Because
agree. Aaron.
if,
Part of parliamentary inquiry, where are we on the agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry. We are talking about Article 11.
Thank you so much.
No problem. The Fire Station Building Committee composition, they're requesting 2 additional members, one being the chief, the other being an active firefighter of the Milton force.
And the committee has already gone through reviewing 1 through 10?
No, we haven't got
just
the
the
text for 1 through
Jeez,
10.
I do 6
No. Oh,
Just
wouldn't that be
got it.
great to go through Articles 1 through 10 in 7 minutes? That's record time even for us.
Okay.
No, we don't, no, as I was mentioning earlier, we do not have the texts of the articles.
I noticed that.
Yes, and I have asked and
It's
made the
concerning.
request. That's a good word.
Yes.
I have a few others, but concerning we'll take. We'll go with concerning for the time being. Kevin?
Yeah, hi, George, how are you? I have just some concerns with having both the fire chief and a member. Is there a setup of sorts to have competing interests and views amongst the fire department?
Oh, you mean on the force itself?
Yeah, on the
Yeah,
force
yeah,
itself. So you have your chief
Yeah.
as a management, and you have another member as labor, and then they see things differently, and how does that present itself in a discussion about the fire department?
For discussion purposes, I understand that it's a good thing. I just wonder if the swaying possibilities here, because the chief, if I were sitting on the fire station committee and the chief made a point, I would listen to that very closely. I'd also listen to what the firefighters say. I mean, they're the ones who are actually doing it. We need this, we don't need that, this is ridiculous, we have to stay over in the firehouse and the roof leaks or something, whatever. The point is that I think we do have to listen to the perspective, but to add to voting members, I am haunted by the history lesson we got when FDR tried to pack the Supreme Court in 1937. I get nervous when I see things like this post factum. I mean, what was wrong with the number to start with? So I guess the methodology and the reasoning, Gwendy points out, let's know why this is
agree with
being
that.
put in place. So do we have a consensus that if we table this to the next meeting, maybe we'll have Chief Grant come and give us, or somebody from the fire station committee come
This
and
is
talk
from
to
the
us a
Board of
little bit about it?
Selectmen.
Yeah.
Well, have the selectmen come. I mean, they're welcome to come. Obviously, they've seen the agenda. They're more than happy to have them come.
And I think also somebody, a
And
representative
somebody
from,
from the
himself,
committee
yes.
too, yeah, definitely.
So Tom, just kind of, I'd like to understand how the other committee members feel about this, as much as I think we can all predict why the
We could
fire
ask the-
department and the fire chief.
I would
but
think, yeah.
I'd be intrigued to understand if the other
What the committee
are
members-
okay with it, and
okay.
if so, what their.
Okay,
Current
so we have a
chairman.
consensus that as we publish the agenda for next week, I think we can put some feelers out and certainly extend to Mike, through Mike, an invitation for any of them to come
Certainly don't
and
want
give
to
us some
leave it
ideas of why they think this is a good idea or not.
that's true.
Next Monday. We're doing the best we can. I know it's the end of I know you're telling me, please. It's still summer for some of us, right? Okay, so I think that we have a consensus to table this one, Article 11, pending further information. And I will be sure that we extend the invitation for anybody to come who wants to talk about this, whether the committee or the firefighters themselves. Kevin?
Article 10.
Yes.
Did we not get that? I have Article 10.
I don't have Article 10.
That's the,
That's the retired police.
the act
I have that.
authorizing the appointment of retared
Yeah.
police
Mine didn't print out.
as special
We
police
can talk about it. I
officers.
mean, I have it electronically, I just don't have it in front of me. Okay.
Right, it came in with the other,
They said this
Okay.
doesn't apply, this
I don't know where mine is. I didn't have it.
Really
Wait, are we
hard to
saying we
look
didn't
up.
have the fire
That's
station?
what I asked.
We have the fire station
Oh, yeah,
one.
that one.
Yeah, I don't have a printout of Article
We haven't done it yet.
This is like a cut
You
and
don't have
paste
10 either,
of a
okay.
bunch of other towns.
Does anybody have a hard copy of 10?
I'm special.
I have it, I'm very simple.
You've got it, so we vote.
But I don't have a piece of paper or something.
Yeah.
What acts are they
Do I need it now to talk about it? Just look on.
reserved?
We can talk about it, but I see Rick Neely just came in, and I have a feeling Rick wants to talk to us about the chief financial officer article, so why don't we
So that's a no?
just hang on for a second with that. Rick, do you have, are you prepared to talk to us about this? Terrific. All right, so we're tabling Article 11 for the time being, and we're going to skip down to Article 15. Rick Neely is chairing the Government Study Committee, and sent around this article, which you have all received, that discusses creation of I would say professionalizing and centralizing several roles within the town, I think whose time has come. Many people are thinking this, but I will leave it to Rick. We've all read the article, but I'll leave it to Rick to go through the reasoning and remind you that you have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank two members of our committee who are with me tonight, Sean Cronin and Leroy Walker, sitting behind. So they joined, and I would encourage them to speak up if I miss something or misstate something. So the quick history of this is that the idea of all this came out through this report, which was a report that was commissioned with the Department of Revenue. Our committee recommended that. The Board of Selectmen agreed that it made sense to have the Department of Revenue do a financial management review of the town. They've done well over a couple hundred of these reviews throughout the Commonwealth. They reviewed all sorts of things, water and sewer enterprise funds across the Commonwealth, and all sorts of different ideas. Matter of fact, we've used this report to come up with the articles that strengthen the town administrator that were passed and approved and is in place with the statute article, Chapter 65. Also created the idea of changing the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5, as has been done in many towns, and that's been implemented. So in any case, this report did recommend that, in fact, the assistant town administrator position be used for finance, and included in that was a consolidation. But let me just get to some of the key points. The reason that the state recommended that, as has been done in many towns, is that they believe that it would be expected to prepare multi-year financial forecasts, develop annual revenue and expenditure assumptions, draft budget guidelines, and formulate annual balanced budget proposals for the town administrator and policymakers, including the Board of Selectmen. And they suggest combining and converting the elected treasurer and collector to an appointed position. So that's part of the article that you're looking at. And, you know, as a committee, have gone through and we've researched all of this. We've been doing this over the last several years. And as we've done that, we've reviewed and determined that over 80% of the towns greater than a 10,000 population have in fact already converted from elected to appointed. So it's we're not the first ones on the block to be trying to do that. We've also reviewed and talked with officials in all the towns, a number of towns that are similar to us, talked to people with elected treasurers, towns with appointed treasurers. And we think it makes good sense after talking to all these officials. We've had stakeholder meetings in the town. We've been meeting with, two members of our committee have been meeting individually with Board of Selectmen members and other key stakeholders. Met with George also. So we've been going around and trying to meet with everybody in the town. Town Administrator Mike Dennehy and myself met with the town treasurer to be upfront about this and go over the article with him and explain what our rationale was. So we believe this article is something that would be very beneficial for the town. If the article were to be approved at town meeting in the fall, it would need to go on a ballot, and the ballot would be next spring in the election. Next spring also, the town treasurer would be on the ballot. So if both of those items were to be passed, what would happen is the treasurer would serve out his one-year term, and in April 2020, essentially, the position would effectively be created. Because you would have a situation where the treasurer really, at that point, would become an appointed position. When Mike Denny and I met with the treasurer, it was indicated to the treasurer that he would be appointed the treasurer. So he was told that, and I haven't heard more from him. I have not had any other discussion with the treasurer since our meeting with him, but that was told to him. Again, we believe that having the treasurer as part of the finance department makes sense. I've been a treasurer for over 30 years in various companies, both public and private, for-profit and nonprofit, and the treasurer has never been independent. The treasurer's always been part of the team. So we think that's an important piece of this, and I explained to you why the Department of Revenue recommended this. So I think maybe I'll stop there within my 7 minutes here, just to make sure if there are any questions. I would tell you that the Board of Selectmen is co-sponsoring this, and we have the full support of that. We met with the Board of Selectmen last Monday night. So obviously, at some point, you may want to speak with them. The town council has reviewed and prepared this article carefully. I've sat through a number of reviews with them on this, so this article has been, as I say, tightly reviewed. So why don't I just stop there?
Questions? Tom?
Okay, a couple questions. First one, in terms of, we're obviously adding, we'd be adding a CFO position. Now, are we going to take the existing assistant town administrator? Is that where that position is going to come from?
The town administrator has kept vacant an assistant town administrator, and that assistant town administrator position would become, in fact, the CFO. In some towns, it's called the director of finance. Some towns, not every town uses the word CFO, but some of them use that title as director of finance. But that's the position that would be used.
Now, the follow-up on that question is, I believe that's only funded at 80 or somewhat thousand?
Well, effectively, if it doesn't get passed until next spring, I mean, the town administrator would then have to begin the search process after the town meeting at the end of.
Yeah, I mean, the point was, it's unlikely you'd find a good CFO for 80 grand.
Correct. And you really would need to, I think the earliest you'd have that position filled would be July 1st of next year, and I'm not sure it would be filled on July 1st because that only leaves essentially 2 months to go through the screening process.
Right.
So you might need 10/12ths, you might need 8/12ths of the annual salary. The annual salary could be in the range of, could be, and it hasn't been determined. Our committee has not done a compensation study, but it could be in the range of 125, 150,000.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And one concern I have, I mean, I do support the idea, clearly with my background and everything, I do support the idea of a CFO position to coordinate. What does bother me a little bit about it is you're going to put a CFO on that has no control over 60% of the operations and budget of the town, because schools are out.
Well,
And that bothers me. I think that, I don't know, I think it would be problematic for.
Roy Walker of our
for
committee
CFO.
has met with the school officials, and I asked Roy to speak to that. He's met with 3 folks. If you want
Good evening.
How are you?
So we had that same thought, Tom, and I met with Mary Gormley, I met with Kevin Donahue, who's chair of the school committee, and I met with Glenn Pavlicek, who's the assistant superintendent for business in the schools. And what we said to all of them is that our concept for this would be that in an org chart, where we show an org chart that the assistant superintendent for business would have a dotted line relationship to the CFO, and the clear understanding would be that they would cooperate in the building of the budget, just as they've done with the town administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea would be that the CFO would have a relationship with the schools and would be able, from the very beginning, to have some input on building the budget.
But that wouldn't be obligatory, that would be statute, that's more of a gentleman's agreement that they would have.
Well, you've got some statutory issues there.
Yes.
The school committee has statutory authority to build
Yes,
the budget.
that's what he was
So-
getting, yeah.
Well, there's nothing we can do about
Can't
that.
change that. So in
No,
point of fact, not much would change.
But other towns have done that, Barnstable being one, that has successfully blended the administration of schools in town.
Well, I think
So
we're
there's a
trying,
model for it.
I think we're trying to do this one step at a time. Before we decide to try to go after Chapter 70, I think we probably want to do this where we have at least one individual who has the professional qualifications and experience to oversee the entire municipal budget, and who has the planning capability to give us a forward look, forecasting, and helping us to handle some of these pretty significant financial realities that all of you are acutely aware of. The idea is that for once, we'll have someone who has both the professional experience and the authority to do that for the town of
Well,
Milton.
this is very consistent with what we talked about at our last meeting and of the year, is to develop a forecast and to put that as a priority, because it hasn't been done. I mean, when was the last time? You told me the last time it was done was, what, 5 years ago, or something of that
No,
nature?
more recently than that.
More recently?
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Oh, 3 years ago, okay. But
But it
still,
was not updated.
That's right.
It was done
And
once, and
realities
then
change.
kind of, nobody had the time to.
Right, and I think that individual would have a much closer relationship with this group, with, obviously with the Board of Selectmen and with the schools. And through that, I think we could get much more robust financial planning, and I think that's absolutely critical.
Certainly, our meeting with the town treasurer, when Mike Denny and I met with him, one of the things we talked about in terms of why the treasurer's position should be folded into the department is the need for, if there's a priority issue to come up with an accrual forecast, well, there's a cash forecast that's needed as well. And the cash and the accrual are, right now, totally separate, and we need to bring it together.
Doug, you had a question.
It was more a curiosity, kind of doomsday scenario as we transition from the treasurer position. Right now, it's elected, and you said that there's, I guess, an understanding the treasurer, should he be reelected, would then be appointed at the end of that term?
That's what Mike Denny committed to the treasurer, that he would appoint him upon the conclusion of his elected term.
What would
Essentially
happen
during-
should he choose to either not rerun or not win that election?
Should he?
It's a completely doomsday scenario. What would happen if he either chose not to run or not win? And it would be somebody
He doesn't run.
else.
I think he's essentially retired, so I don't think
Yes,
he'd be,
so-
sorry, he wouldn't be appointed in that case.
Yes, but if somebody else wins, would they search for one? It's just a complete,
Yeah, there's no commitment to any other person.
okay.
So I don't know whoever that other person is. Some other person
You'd
beats
start
him.
from scratch, basically, if he comes up the works, so.
Aaron, you have a
I
question.
do, I actually have now a multifold question.
Please.
So the first one is why didn't you write it in so that that person would be grandfathered in after the election on this article?
Yeah, we did not want to get into that in detail in here. in terms
So
of
you
grandfather.
wanted to make sure that you guys had, that the town administrator had the authority to hire whoever they wanted, no matter what the people said would be elected.
Does he appoint him, actually?
You didn't grandfather in the treasurer position, right? But you just said that that was a
Didn't
gentleman's
grandfather
agreement.
the person?
Right, so whoever wins that election was not grandfathered in under this.
Correct.
Right, and it wasn't done so because you wanted to make sure that the town administrator would have the authority to appoint whoever they wanted.
Correct. Under Chapter 65, that's referenced in this article.
Yep, I know where it is.
That would give the town administrator the authority to appoint CFO and the treasurer, for example.
So no matter what the folks of Milton elected months prior, you chose not to grandfather that in this article.
You're
Okay,
correct.
Okay. So then my next question is how come you've made it so that only one person is the one who gets to appoint it, instead of you basically have taken it away from all the citizens of Milton, and you've placed it at the foot of the town administrator, instead of, hold on, I'm not done, instead of having it be the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, and the school committee. For example, you could have 3 different bodies voting on who should be the CFO. Instead of, basically what you did was you stripped all of us of our vote of who should be our treasurer.
No, you have a vote to elect the Board of Selectmen. So as a resident, the Board of Selectmen appoints the town administrator, and if you're unhappy with the town accountant or the DPW director, the police chief, fire chief is under a little bit strong fire chief law.
Yep.
But in those examples, you really have to determine whether the Board of Selectmen is the right group of people that you have there. In a financial department, treasurers are part of a team, and generally, the Board of Directors, for example, isn't hiring the treasurer. it is the president and the CFO that are hiring the treasurer of a company or a nonprofit.
Except right now, it's my understanding that we elect that, correct? As the
The
public?
residents elected, and what's happened
Okay.
is that
I
as
just want to make sure that everybody's clear that we're stripping ourselves of a vote.
you're
of that.
changing to what over 80% of the towns have done, you're doing what is consistent with practices, best practices.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody's clear.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know that I would look at it the same way as stripping. I mean, I think that the voters have looked at it before and voted, but I'm not sure that they've done so with the strongest
knowledge.
knowledge.
Correct.
And I think if you're going to put that in on one body, whether it's one person or a team, I think that's better than a voting, it's a position like this. And I think to your question about, will it add to the budget? I think it will, and
Oh,
I
it
think you'll
should.
pay for what, you'll get what you pay for. And it's a critical position.
Susanna, you had a question.
I do. To sort of piggyback on Erin's point, because we don't have that report that you're reading from, I understand that 80% of the towns have done it. What is the problem with regard specifically to the change in treasurer from elected to appointed? What is the problem that this proposal is designed to fix? Is it the understanding that the electorate has not done a good job selecting treasurer? Is it just an attempt to streamline the process? Is there a specific thing that this is designed to address?
It's designed to have all of your finance folks reporting up in the organization. And so, for example, if the town administrator announces the priorities to do a five-year financial plan, the town accountant, the town treasurer, all those folks will prioritize and make that activity happen. It ensures that teams are working together.
I see.
Right now, what this is trying to address and what most towns have done is sit back and say, the independence is not really something that makes sense in a treasury function because the treasurer and the accountant need to work closely together. The CFO needs to have the authority. If you leave it independent, the trouble is the treasurer does not have, if you're the CFO, you're not able to do a review of the person. You're not able to set priorities.
Yep.
And so that's the goal.
I can see another issue, and it came out in our discussion when Rick and Kerry Healy of the Government Study Committee came and briefed me on this.
Kerry White.
Kerry White, I'm sorry, Kerry White. I know Kerry Healy too, but anyway.
Oh my God, Lieutenant Governor was here? What's
Well,
going on?
Anyway,
President
the concept of having an elected treasurer who may or may not have any financial acumen at all is the risk, and not to say that we've had that, but the needs of the town have become such that sophistication is required. Having worked in finance for 35 years, it is not getting simpler, and it's not a paint by number, and it's just important to have someone who has the credentials and who is vetted by responsible elected officials doing the job. I mean, it'd be lovely. I mean, you could have your best buddy out there, and maybe he's been a wonderful guy, gets elected, gets the majority, but he's a barber. Nothing wrong with barbers, but I mean, can he come up with the financial plan that the town needs at this point? And we have all recognized on this committee that we need help. We can't do it ourselves, even though we're calling for it. And this is, I think, a strut to that would be very helpful.
So George, can I just ask, what happens to the person that's running? Let's say it is the barber or whoever it is. What happens to that person who just ran?
Yeah.
I mean, if I was looking at this as a citizen, I'd be like, why would I run? Because in 2 months I may be stripped of my position I just won. So that's
a very valid question.
Underlying,
Yep.
what are we doing
Is the practical
here?
implication, Rick,
Right.
has that been considered? That
Well,
you have, okay.
The current
here's the
treasurer's
scenario.
been unopposed for the last 9 years.
Understood,
Well, I'm gonna
understood.
run now. I'm just saying.
Well, but if you're going to run, you don't have this, in recognition of the 10 years of service that the current treasurer has provided, the town administrator agreed to appoint that person. Now, you run, you haven't provided 10 years of service, so
I could
I think the
win.
town administrator, you might win, but if you're asking if you should be appointed afterwards, you haven't committed 10 years of service to the town like the treasurer has.
But you'd
currently.
also, I think, have to submit to the process of interview and be vetted, et cetera, potential credentials. So I think the answer to the question is if the person runs, they have to go,
And do it again?
well, they'd have to know in full,
That's
with
fine.
full
That's fine.
disclosure. Well, full disclosure, if this is adopted, that person knows that it's a very short tenure in that job, and they would have to apply for it if they wanted it. I would
But
think
yet
that
we're
would
gonna
be the
allow the
answer.
person that's been there for 10 years to do that?
Right.
Well,
That-
That's concerning to me, to be honest with you, Mr. Chairman.
I understand. Doug?
Okay, assuming the worst case scenario doesn't happen and that common sense prevails and the treasurer wins, the position transitions over and he's appointed, has there been any discussions of the length of his potential appointment? Has it been a transition or something?
I was not present in any of that discussion,
Okay.
and my understanding is from Mike Dennehy before he left that there was no discussion on that.
Okay.
Would there be a change in compensation for is the idea that it's dollar neutral for the treasurer position, regardless of whether it's elected
We
or?
haven't really gone into that. We just
I
have.
think that's
Treasurer
a
would
very
be
good,
taking
that's
on
a
the
good question to
collector
ask.
role, right?
Kevin?
Yeah, I guess I'm in favor of the article, and I would just say that I think it's important for the town administrator to be able to put together his team and not kind of work on having a treasurer year to year, vote to vote, although it's worked out for us because, the guy has run unopposed for 9 years. But it speaks to just having that, consistency and building a team, hiring, and then we can hold all those folks accountable.
And professionalizing
And
the response to the role.
absolutely, having the folks work together as a team under the direction of the town administrator. I mean, that's part and parcel to why we elected went with a strong town administrator model.
I think one of the interesting things is that as we talk to the stakeholders, and as Rick said, we talked with town accountant, we talked with town treasurer, we talked with chair of the school committee, school superintendent, members of the audit committee, that one of the clear developing themes was, one of the questions we asked them was, one, do you think that this kind of structure makes sense, a structure with a centralized CFO? And the second question was, what potential improvements might you expect? And obviously, these individuals had not talked to each other at all, but the two fairly compelling themes were better financial planning and better coordination and cooperation. And I think that what we've tried to do is separate, our recommendation is regarding structure, a financial management structure. We haven't talked about, and shouldn't talk about, well, who's the incumbent? What should the deal be with the incumbent?
Agreed.
How long should they be? That's not our role. Our role is to say, we think that this is the best financial management structure for the town. Now, obviously, someone needs to worry about those kinds of things, but that's the town administrator's role.
The other thing we've included in the article, you'll notice that we've included the IT in purchasing as reporting to the CFO, and that's common in most
They should
companies.
be. Yeah, they should be. Tom?
Rick, I guess one thing's a little concerning here also is that unlike when we had an article for the strong town administrator, we were very clear in terms of what the duties and responsibilities would be. I think it helped get that article through because people could understand exactly. And here we've got a very vague.
Well, we have a position summary that we actually used for meeting with our key stakeholders. So, and Leroy is an expert on writing these job descriptions.
And we have a detailed job description, which my thought was that as part of the article package for the town meeting, we could include that detailed job description. But we do have one that outline. But at town council, this was town council's recommendation as to what the body of the article should be.
Are there any other comments? Okay, go ahead, Clinton, please.
So Kevin, you said hold accountable to whoever's elected or put in the position. That'd be after the fact though, right? If
Pretty much, yeah, they'd be an employee and they'd have a performance evaluation annually from the town administrator.
just a quick thing, I mean, with Aaron, maybe this would help, I'm not sure. Can the person you want to be to run as a CFO, like have your endorsement, so it still leaves the power, even if he's run unopposed, to the people? And just so it doesn't, hurt someone else's chances, maybe another qualified individual comes later on, and that person's already grandfathered in for how many every years they're going to be.
1 year.
Well, not the person that's running. I mean, the person that's going to be appointed. How long would they be appointed for?
It's indefinite.
So are you referring to the CFO or the treasurer?
CFO.
The CFO, that would be between the town administrator and the CFO.
He's hired as an assistant.
Presumably, this would be a contractual position.
I would imagine so.
So you'd be on a 3-year
Yeah, it's-
A 3-year
contract.
contract?
It's,
I think we have to remember one thing. The discussion that may have occurred or may not have occurred, I was not there, between the town administrator and the incumbent treasurer, should be set aside. I think the idea here is this a good idea for the town? The individuals, the setup, the whoever, I think is almost tertiary in my sense. The idea, is this a good idea for the town of Milton? Is it the right thing for us in our evolution as a municipality, given the needs? I understand all the issues and all the subjects that have been brought up in the points of view. Everyone is valid. I think we have to just keep our eye on, is this the right thing to do? Is this a good idea? And the rest of it will, if we have concerns, we bring them up appropriately, but let's not forget what it is we're being asked to recommend to the town meeting.
And how long is the time between the election and the appointment of this new article? So I'm sorry, I missed that timeline at the beginning.
okay, the timeline would be that you have the fall town meeting.
Right.
If it
October.
passes the fall town meeting in October of 2018.
Yep,
On the April 2019 annual election, there
Yep.
would be a ballot question for this conversion of the
Yep.
elected to appointed treasurer.
Okay.
Simultaneously, the treasurer would be on the ballot
yep,
for his annual
Right.
election.
yep,
His term would expire in April 2020.
okay.
You'd have a situation where for 1 year, you potentially could have a CFO in place without the treasurer reporting directly to the CFO. So if you appointed the treasurer in August of 2019
Yep.
for 10 months or so, until the end of the term, the treasurer would still be independent.
Practically speaking, though,
understand.
that can be managed.
Right.
Practically
Internally,
speaking.
correct?
Internally, I believe so. Gwendy, did you have a question?
Well, just that, the difficulty I have with this, I don't disagree with the structure at all. It's the, not knowing the financial impact. It may be small dollars if we're talking
In
just.
terms of what the compensation would be relative to what the
of comp-
treasurer makes?
Yeah, so we're approving a
And the treasurer,
structure.
CFO.
That's
We're
a good
approving
question.
the structure, and we think the structure is a good idea, but without having the financial impact, and to
Right.
Tom's point of
That's
it
worth-
just being
that's worth
40% of the
asking.
budget, to look at the overall, impact, what percentage of the budget that actually is, and see if the cost increase, that's.
Reasonable. My thought then is, as we have still a couple of outstanding points, and I think Mike, the Town Administrator Mike Denicky, could answer some of them, we could defer a vote on this until we have some of those answers from him and invite him to the next meeting, because I think those are perfunctory questions. I think we're coming up to my sense is that we're coming up to a conclusion here.
Agreed.
So that when Mike comes, we can pose those questions to him. We'll be able to have a more informed vote when we do take it. So if there are no other questions, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
This is really
Thanks.
quite well
Thank
done.
you.
And thanks very much for coming in tonight. Absolutely.
No, I'm gonna slide
Elections,
from
we
this.
still have a treasurer in place while
Others
it gets
too.
reviewed.
It is the first step in a
The whole
process.
process actually seems
But we
like
have to,
more
we have to
better.
undertake the process.
Yeah, so we'll
Okay,
work
so
that.
we'll table this one again until we get a little more information, but having that information, I think, is very helpful from the Government Studies Committee. Okay, so back to our order. We have, let's go back to Article 10 to authorize the appointment of the retired police officer as special police officers. Everybody has this. You should have it, if you don't have it in hard copy, you should have it electronically. I have mine electronically. So is there any discussion on, let me just,
Yeah, I have it here. Thanks.
Did you get any response to that question I had?
I did not yet, but I'm hoping that I will shortly. Okay, this is the article, as it reads, is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to file a petition with the General Court to enact legislation substantially the following form, provided that the General Court may reasonably vary the form, and this act authorize the appointment of retired police officers as special police officers. So there are several sections to it. We've all read it. Does anyone have any comments about this?
I guess I'd like to hear from the police chief. I'd like to hear from,
Chief
I
King,
I assume the selectmen are the ones that put
Sponsor
this out of
this,
the
yeah.
pool? Because it's not, on the, at least the one I'm looking at,
It doesn't.
doesn't. So, yeah, I'd like to.
We'll invite Chief King to come.
Otherwise, it would seem to be a,
It seems in order, but having him say something about it would be helpful for me anyway, too. I mean, it makes sense to me, but why not? I don't know what the implications are. for
Yeah,
each
just
one.
the cost of comparing, like, what are they replacing?
Right.
Like,
If anything, for that.
is it overtime versus these?
Right.
Yeah.
It's usually flagman, and then it is more money because you're paying a higher salary. But I would be
Yeah, that's what I would
interested to hear-
Would we actually be paying a higher hourly rate?
Believe so, over flagman. This was a big thing with the state a while back.
But do
Okay.
you not
And,
pay pension costs or anything?
Oh, they
Yeah.
do get pension, you're
They do
allowed to
get
get
that.
pension plus.
Based on that, so that, oh, I see, okay.
So this was
Yeah.
about
So
3 or
that's
4
worth-
years ago. It was
well, this
really
wouldn't
big
be
at the state.
pensionable, and
Is it
because
not?
these are retired police officers
They
on
were
pension.
already on a
so they're gonna be
pension.
But they
So
get
it's not
their,
adjusted?
they get their current pension plus the hourly rate
Yeah.
up to a cap.
120.
Yes.
It
yeah.
would be kept, okay. Well, we'll ask, Chief King
But the
can
chief
answer these
should know.
questions. The chief, so we'll make a note to ask Chief King to come to this, our next meeting or the one on the 5th.
Just so we have the full depth
Picture.
of knowledge.
It will-
of this.
it will help
I mean,
us.
there's a couple sections where it says, shall not be subject to chapter 31 or section 99 of chapter 41.
It'll help to know. what
Rather
those
than
are.
me trying to look these up, I
Translate
would
it
like to
into
know
English
what those
for us,
were.
okay, right.
If we
I
can get it from the
tried to
town
look-
admin- Yeah,
Look these up,
and
like,
she's a lawyer.
yeah.
Exactly
I
right.
couldn't find Chapter 32 of
Well,
the
if you're
general
having a
laws.
problem, the rest of us
So
don't have a
if town
prayer.
council or the town
Okay.
administrator could give us
Okay.
a
So,
review of those, what they're not subject to, would be appreciated.
Okay, so Article 12 is the plastic bag ban law, which we all have. Has anybody?
I did not see that.
Get a plastic
You
bag?
don't have that, George.
You didn't get the plastic
No.
bag?
I've heard of it, but I don't have it.
Okay.
There's a lot that we're missing.
Okay. It's, I have it marked as an Article 10, so it may be that it didn't come through. So,
I'm looking for
Oh.
it. I know I've read it and seen, so I think she said it, I just
Yeah.
sent it, I just don't know if it was with all the others.
yeah, it should have been because it came in, it was sent with all the others that I got. But if you don't have it, we can make sure you do have it for the next
Please.
meeting. But this is effectively plastic checkout bags will be banned in the town for the purpose of promoting the use of reusable bags and paper. So we'll make sure that you have this one. I thought everybody had it. So let's move on. Article 13, does everybody have this one? This
Yes.
charge the library building committee. Okay. The 2004 town meeting established it under Article 34. And the trustees of the public library and the library building committee have voted to effectively vote themselves out. I think we can take a vote on this one. They're recommending it. I don't have a problem with it. It's not going to hurt anybody going forward. Do we have a motion to accept this one and recommend it to town meeting?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Okay.
Any discussion? Approved. Recommend to adopt this one by the town meeting, Article 13. So we got one done. Hooray for us.
Nice.
Article 14, does everyone have this one?
Yes.
Yep.
This is the transfer of the Kidder branch at 101 Blue Hills Parkway.
It's such a great building. I
It
just
is a
want to
great
say that.
building.
It's a great
Yeah.
building.
The trustees of the public, it reads, to see if the town will vote to transfer the former Kidder Branch Library property at 101 Blue Hills Parkway from the trustees of the Milton Public Library for library purposes to the trustees of the Milton Public Library for the purpose of sale of said property, and to further authorize the trustees of the Milton Public Library to sell said property for such consideration and upon such terms as the trustees of the Public Library deem appropriate, and to act on anything related thereto, submitted by the trustees of the Public Library. Public Library. Discussion. Thoughts?
Is there a reason that they're doing it? I mean, like why?
Vacant. It's
Yeah.
vacant.
It's not being used.
The
not
Kidder
being
building needs a lot of
Yeah.
money
lot of
to
deferred
really
maintenance.
bring it up, and it's not really large enough for anything of like school, or at least the school committee said it's not big enough to put preschools in there. It's in, I think, a residential area.
It is.
So you
Yes.
can't really lease it out to business
It's not a nice piece
districts
of
area.
property.
It's a,
Not
Yeah.
Blue
it is.
Hills.
Yeah, it's in a good
in a great
area.
neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood, yeah.
But it's not right across from-
commercial.
Commercial?
No.
No.
It is
No, it's
not.
not
It is
zoned
completely
commercial.
in a residential area.
Are there no other needs that the town
You'd have to go
has
down
that
the
they could
street
use that?
and-
It
that's where
was
you're gonna hit
deeded
your
to them
commercial.
through
Like the
will,
younger
so
place.
they're limited
That's
to
a
what they
interchange
can do it.
place.
It has to be for library purposes,
Yeah.
and right now they're using it to lease out to get money for like library revenue,
Okay.
and it's just, it costs more money to maintain than they have it.
Tom?
So do we know what Nathaniel Kidder's will says with respect to this building?
That I don't know.
Does the trust
I-
allow
I-
them to transfer
I
it
think
and hit
that's
sell it?
important.
That's worth asking. I don't know what the provision
I
of the
don't know the
trust are.
exact positions. They are limited with it. It has to be for like library purposes, or if they sell it, it has to be like at market value, and then that money goes into the library trust.
But if we transfer the building and we sell it as the town, then that money has to go back into
Library
I
trust?
think if they sell it, the money has to go to
Yeah,
library
those are all
trust.
things I wanna
think.
know.
Yeah, we need
That's-
explanation.
we don't
on
have-
this.
we don't have the
That was
rationale.
my understanding. It could be wrong, but I think they're
It wouldn't
really
just go in the
specific.
general
on this.
fund.
No, it
I
doesn't go
can't
to the
imagine that
town.
would
It
be the
has to,
case.
I think it has to go
I
to
think what we
library.
need to do is get the provision of the Kidder Trust, if any, upon the disposition of the proceeds and what use of proceeds can be devoted to. Do they revert to the public library trust, or do they go to the town, or can they?
We should talk to the chair of the library
I
trustees.
think we'll ask the library trust, or we can have the library committee come, since the trustees of the library proposed it, they can come and talk to us and tell us what can happen, because I think they would know those answers
I
pretty
know they
quickly.
were trying to study what to do with it, whether we furnish it, rent it out, or sell it. And it looks like they've
Okay,
settled
so
on
we
selling
will,
it.
we'll make sure that they have information and come to one of the next meetings. I think
What's deemed appropriate, as far as what they can sell it to, or I'd like to know that.
We don't have control over that,
that's
unfortunately.
what they deem appropriate. If they're in charge, they have to decide what is appropriate, what they deem appropriate. And if that's their purview, that's their purview.
They can put up
We can
comments.
ask them, we can ask. I mean, there's
Yeah,
no
what
reason,
terms
this is
they're-
what we're here for.
And again, the will probably limits is how and how much they
will.
can sell it.
Deemed appropriate is maybe according to the will, fine, or is it
Yeah.
according to them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they could actually use, I mean, the premises is a library, they're not going to turn it into a dance hall or something like that.
Well, you know, come on, this is Milton.
Right
I
now,
know.
right now, there's
Yeah,
like
well,
a
that's
private
true.
preschool in there.
We want a casino, right?
No,
I'm joking.
no casinos.
Just a little one.
No, but just the-
Just a kidder-sized one.
Slots bar. That's been making money for
Oh,
the
yeah,
city.
that'll go over real big. Okay.
Good God.
The library, the trustees of the library will have answers to these questions, and I think just a few pointed questions will help us make a decision to recommend or not. Article 15 is, we talked about as the chief financial officer. Article 16 is kind of in tandem with Article 17, the citizens petition, that will change the Board of Selectmen, or anywhere where it appears, to the Select Board of the town, or Select Board members, or members of the Select Board. And chairman will no longer be chairman, it'll be the chair. So there are several provisions. I'm assuming everybody has this one. Okay, very good. I'm not sure where the other ones didn't go through. But do we have any discussion on this point, on this question? Yes, Aaron.
How come we have two?
The citizens
How come-
petition and the
yeah.
selectmen are,
So I watched the select board meeting.
Yeah.
And that evening, and and what was that evening, and it was, very disheartening as a Milton resident and somebody who is a woman, to see, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to watch it yet.
I
You
did not.
should.
Explain a little bit what
You should watch it, because I think it speaks for itself, and it speaks to how the Board of Selectmen thought about this article that was brought in front of them. So I'm curious to know why all of a sudden we have not only a citizen's petition, which was what was in front of them to begin with, and now we have something from the Select Board.
There's still the selectmen, we haven't changed that
Selectmen.
yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna call them the Select Board. So do we have any reasoning why, Mr. Chairman?
I have not, I see what you
I can
see.
add-
Tom, if you have more
That it
detail.
was kind of happened concurrently, that actually one of the selectmen that ran with one of his platforms was to change this.
It was.
So that's how it kind of came through the selectmen, and a citizen petition was boiling at the same time. So they run.
So how come the Select Board then did not vote to approve it when it came in front of them?
I didn't see the meeting, so I don't know.
I would suggest that every person in this warrant committee watch it.
Preview us, please.
It was really disheartening about how we should not bend to the whim of other towns that are making these changes, and how there's a precedent here, and that many people on the Select Board felt that we should continue the precedent. And it was very discouraging. And it was something that I think, I'd be interested to know how they came around to see that they should change their minds. And maybe it would be the poll that was put out to all of Milton. They were stating things like there was only, the citizens' position only went to certain parts of the town and therefore did not encompass the whole town. And so how do we really know that this was what was supposed to be? It was really disheartening. It's quite a way in on the selectmen's meeting that evening. But if you have a chance to queue it up, I would. It took about 20 minutes. There was a wonderful presentation by one of the select persons, and talked about how, you know, even though there was a tradition of calling it this, we all have grown and evolved, and it was really shot down by many people on the select board.
Well, in light of that, we have a chance to further the cause of evolution then.
I am so happy about that.
So we can carry the torch.
From a logistical perspective.
Yes.
I mean, you don't need both of these on the warrant.
Right.
I don't
So
know.
what do we do?
I don't know the
They will
answer
both
to
go
that.
on Unless somebody
I mean,
pulls it.
if they're identical,
Really?
probably not, but I think we need an opinion of council on
No,
that.
they will both.
They
they
both
will
go
Wait,
up here, really?
if we deny one of them,
No, they'll still be on, I mean, they'll be there with a no recommendation from us, but
Yeah.
they'll still be on
they'll
the
still
warrant.
be on.
Well,
Absolutely.
they can
both
be,
are
but
on.
I guess the question of handling them if they're
It gets
identical,
extremely confusing to town meeting.
it's
Right,
confusing
that's all
to
we
me,
need.
frankly, right now.
But they're
because-
both
Well,
gonna be on
based
there
on what
anyway.
Aaron has said about the selectmen's reaction, I think it sends a political message
Agreed.
to select, to recommend one and not the other, depending on
agree.
which it is. I mean, the citizens have
Maybe.
brought one forward, and the select board, it sounds like, we're at least ambivalent on bringing the other forward, so.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Clinton?
Yeah.
I mean, the citizens will be the way.
Well, they're both going to be on
They'll both be, we'll
part
have
of
to
town
review
meeting
both.
in any event. So we
Please.
don't want
Please do,
But we
come
wouldn't
identify
want-
yourself and you're welcome.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Emily Armstrong. I was one of the members of the group who gathered the signatures for the citizens petition. And so I just wanted to clarify, and I appreciate the talking about the selectmen's meeting in July. There was another meeting later in August when the second
I didn't see that
article,
one.
when this article that's on the table now was discussed, and the citizens petition, those of us who submitted it, we're in full support of the article
Yes.
that the selectmen adopted. It corrected some language problems that we had in our citizens petition, and as Attorney Flynn reported during that meeting on August 6th, I think they did a very good job in drafting it so that it reflected the intent of the citizens petition to have gender-neutral language.
Right.
And our understanding from that meeting was that, from Attorney Flynn, although I don't want to speak on his behalf, but our understanding was that those two articles would still go forward, that the reason for the Selectmen's article being presented first on the warrant was so that if it was approved, it virtually makes the citizens petition moot.
That would make
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. If that's the, and now, is your group and the people who were sponsoring the citizen petition, are they supportive of what we have in front of us as Article 16?
We are supportive, we're excited, we're thrilled. The only reason we're not withdrawing the citizens petition is we would have to go out and get the signatures of all of the 150 citizens
Same
that we
answer.
gathered, and just, that wasn't
Yeah,
reasonable
we
for
got all
us.
those, I think we got all those 36 pages that came
Yes.
through.
So-
I printed them all out.
Yeah, right. I didn't bring them all. Yeah, you've got them.
So that would be our only reason, would be procedurally, that we wouldn't
Right.
withdraw it. We are
Okay.
fully
So-
in support of it.
So I think that gives us a lot of help in how to proceed going
100%.
forward. But I still think we'd like to have the select, members of the select board come and answer a couple of the
Thank you.
questions for us, possibly. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for coming.
Thank you for that
Tom.
explanation.
I'm kind of, basically, I mean, just the way I am, I mean, you can call me anything you want, I don't really care. So, just don't call me late for dinner. But that being, so I'm not against it, I'm not necessarily, I'm just neutral on it.
I guess that's a good way to be, given what the intent of this is.
But,
They want you to be neutral.
but I would like to have somebody at least think about, even though it may be a one-time cost, what is the cost to changing these words?
It's interesting you should bring that up. The question, go ahead.
I wanna know what the
Go ahead,
cost
please.
is.
I know what you.
If
But
it's
there's
my-
Wendy, go
there's a
ahead.
cost, but there's a relevant, this is the question I had from
Yeah.
last meeting.
Yeah.
Didn't we vote a year ago, October, to have the full amended suite of bylaws prepared?
Oh, yeah.
So it's in process right now.
Yeah.
I don't think that this one change would be an additional cost if we're already going through and redrafting.
Probably not, but let's ask that question.
It's worth asking, because
But-
how far back do we have, I also want to go, how far back do we have to go to correct things?
Hopefully, once you amend the bylaws, it's,
Forward.
it's a document that, it shouldn't be a living document as
Okay.
it is right now. It should be, these are Milton's bylaws,
Go forward.
and then go forward and have them
Good.
updated.
All right, that's fine,
There
because that was
is-
a question somebody asked me.
I understand that there's a cost potentially to the chart, updating the charter, and that you have to advertise and file. It doesn't give a period of time in which that needs to be done, in this article. So if there were other changes to the charter that were happening, you could piggyback on that if it was approved that,
I suppose, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think that the question that we have to pose then, when the select board members come, is any associated costs that will come forward with this, and how are they planning for it, et cetera. So I think that's a reasonable and legitimate thing to ask at this point. So I imagine that we will wait for the representatives, whether it's the chair to come and talk to us a little about this at our next meeting or the meeting on September 5th. I'll be very clear that we will have whatever inputs we have at either that meeting or the 5th, because we're running out of time, because we still have the planning board and the zoning board articles, none of which I've seen, 9 of them, that have to be reported in. And for us to have time to consider these things, we've got to see them. And I will make that point. I think I've made it 3 times already, and the people watching us on television are probably sick of hearing me. But we do need time to consider these things, and we're not making sausage here. This has to be done with some deliberation and some disclosure, and these are not usually straightforward.
So having said that, would we not vote for this if there was a cost? To me, I mean, the cost is irrelevant.
Well, I guess, yeah, in terms of, is the cost minor, then, yeah, then it's probably moot.
Yeah.
You know, if the cost is $1 million, then maybe somebody
Somebody might have.
And if I could just follow up on that
signage,
really
like
quickly,
above the
because even if
offices
the
and
cost
things
is
like
$1 million, we changed the Department of Mental Retardation to the Department of Disability Services. And there's a reason why we did that, because it was insulting.
Yeah, understand.
And so
Yeah.
I don't care how much money it is, I think
I'm
we really
perfectly
need to
happy,
ask
I guess, to get to the
question.
point,
We
I'm
need to ask the
perfectly happy to
question.
take a vote on this tonight, if that's the sense of the committee.
You can make
I have
that
no
motion.
problem doing that.
I would like to, because I would just feel like we've tabled a lot for next Monday,
Yeah.
and I think some of the others are very meaty and substantive.
Yeah.
This, to me, is really clear cut.
The chair will be happy to entertain a motion on this one. As the father of 4 daughters, I'm perfectly happy to entertain a motion on this,
Motion that we approve this.
as
Second.
presented. We have a motion that's been seconded. Do we have further discussion?
Do you mean both? Just to,
Article 16. Article 16
The
specifically.
first one.
No discussion? Hearing no discussion. Do we have, all in favor? Oh, do you have discussion? Please do.
No, I'm not in favor.
I get,
Yeah, I don't have
Vote
any questions
against
answered,
it.
so I'm
Yeah,
not.
okay.
yeah, it's hard for me to, I agree with these points, absolutely, but as a warrant committee member, I can't vote for something if I don't have the questions answered about the cost of it. I think I know from, like, the
We didn't have the
conversations.
cost of the plastic bag ban.
We didn't
haven't
We
vote
didn't
on
vote
it.
for that.
voted on
We don't
that
have the
yet.
Oh, we
text
didn't
of it.
vote for that?
The
We
only
No,
thing
we
that
haven't
we've
voted on
approved
it.
tonight is.
Never mind, that was my damn fault.
We have a motion, it's been seconded, and we're having discussion now. Is somebody, we are amending that, or are we going to take the vote?
Take-
All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? 1, 2,
Abstain, but
3.
We can abstain, can't we?
You can abstain.
Yeah, you can
Absolutely, you
abstain.
can abstain. So we have 6 in favor, 2 against. Can I see the against again, please? 1, 2. Any abstentions?
Can I ask a
1.
question? What's the abstention?
I would like the questions asked. I would like to
So
know those.
vote-
Yeah, I
so
would.
vote against it.
I voted against it. Shut off the discussion, but
What is
An
the
abs- an
there's no
abstention-
misinterpretation here. It's strictly, I'm 100% aligned with you. That's not how the warrant committee operates. We get all the information and then we vote. I don't think we can deviate because it's an important issue. I don't think we can start, being subjective in that
Yeah,
regard.
to clarify, I'm
But we
abstaining
just took a
because,
vote.
as I understand it, the vote is to recommend approval to town meeting.
That's exactly right.
Which means it's off our tables, it's gone,
Right.
it's going to town meeting. So I'm abstaining because I don't want to move it along, I want my questions answered.
Okay, then I abstain as well. If that's the.
So we
that's
have-
Because the
mechanics
no
that we
vote
need
would
to follow.
be, we're saying in town meeting, don't vote for this.
Well, you could reconsider it again.
Yeah,
You'd have to bring it
but-
up for reconsideration, which, once you had the information, you would certainly reconsider it.
It's as much to make my position clear as anything.
I just think it's way premature.
We had, who are the in favors? Again, there were 6 in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 in favor and 4 abstentions. So we don't, technically, we don't have a majority of the committee. Technically.
Do you need a majority of the committee?
No,
Just needed a majority of
You
votes.
just need a
Majority.
majority.
It's a majority here, and the majority just won
So
of
thank
the,
you very
of the
much.
present. So this is recommended to town meeting. So that passes.
I can't believe I had that stain on it. It feels gross.
Okay, so that is all we have for tonight. I will be in touch with Mike Dennehy to get the remaining 9 articles, and we will see that the town,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
On the 9 articles, what's your do you have a drop dead time that we need to get those? So
oh,
we
yeah,
can
that has to
approve
be, the warrant has to be at the printer by the 22nd of September.
them? So you backed into that, and what's the time that you're requesting them to the warrant committee?
I would like to have them here no later than the 5th of September, because we
Okay.
need a couple weeks. I mean, I'd like to
I'm
have them
just
at the
asking.
next meeting, but by the 5th of September is kind of the drop-dead time that we
Okay.
need to have this, because we have to talk about these things, we have to decide what's what, and write it. I mean, that takes time.
Excuse me, for the record,
Yes.
you mentioned the next meeting is the 27th.
27th of August. So that's the next,
7
Monday.
p.m.?
yeah, 7 PM. So that's the next item on our agenda, is the order of meetings. So right now, we have the 27th of August, 7 PM, and then September 5th at 7 PM, which is a Wednesday. After that, we'll determine if we have to meet further. So is there any new business we need to talk about? Okay, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you.